Hello everyone, and welcome back to our channel. Today, we re-diving deep into one of the most complex and influential periods in world history. The Crusades. For nearly 200 years, from the end of the 11th century to the late 13th century, a series of religious wars reshaped the relationship between the Christian and Islamic worlds. It's a story of faith, ambition, power, and immense human cost. So, grab your notebooks, because we're about to embark on a journey through time, exploring the complete timeline of the Crusades. It all begins in 1095. The Byzantine Emperor, Alexios I Komnenos, facing threats from the Seljuk Turks, sends an appeal to Pope Urban II for military aid. In November of that year, at the Council of Clermont in France, Pope Urban II delivers a rousing sermon. He calls upon the Christian knights of Europe to stop fighting amongst themselves and instead march east to reclaim the Holy Land, especially Jerusalem, from Muslim rule. He promises remission of sins for those who undertake the journey. The response is overwhelming. The Cry Deus Vult, or God Wills It, echoes across Europe, igniting the flame of the First Crusade. Before the main armies of knights and nobles could even set out, a wave of common folk, led by figures like Peter the Hermit, embarked on what's known as the People's Crusade in 1096. Unfortunately, this poorly organized and ill-equipped force was largely annihilated in Anatolia. Later that year, the main force of the Prince's Crusade, led by prominent European nobles like Godfrey of Bouillon and Raymond of Toulouse, began their march. After a long and arduous journey, they achieved remarkable success. They captured Nicaea in 1097, won a decisive victory at Dorylaeum, and then endured a grueling siege to take the city of Antioch in 1098. The climax of the First Crusade came in the summer of 1099. The exhausted but determined Crusader army arrived at the gates of Jerusalem. After a month-long siege, on July 15th, they breached the city's walls. What followed was a brutal sack of the city, a dark chapter in the conflict. In the aftermath, the Crusaders established 4 new states in the region, known as the Crusader States: the Kingdom of Jerusalem, the County of Edessa, the Principality of Antioch, and the County of Tripoli. For the moment, it seemed their mission was a stunning success. But holding on to this territory proved to be a different challenge altogether. In 1144, the Seljuk general Zengi captured the county of Edessa, the northernmost Crusader state. This loss sent shockwaves back to Europe and prompted Pope Eugene III to call for a new crusade. This was the Second Crusade, championed by the influential Abbot Bernard of Clairvaux. It was led by 2 of Europe's most powerful monarchs, King Louis VII of France and King Conrad III of Germany. Despite the star power, the campaign, which lasted from 1147 to 1149, was a dismal failure. The 2 armies suffered heavy losses, marching across Anatolia, and their ill-conceived siege of Damascus ended in a humiliating retreat. The Second Crusade achieved nothing and only served to weaken the Crusader states and embolden their enemies. Following the failure of the Second Crusade, the political landscape in the Middle East shifted dramatically. The brilliant and charismatic leader Saladin rose to power, uniting Muslim forces in Egypt and Syria under his banner. He dedicated himself to driving the Crusaders out of the Holy Land. The turning point came in 1187 at the Battle of Hattin. Saladin's army lured the main Crusader force into a waterless trap and utterly destroyed it. This catastrophic defeat left the Kingdom of Jerusalem defenseless. Just a few months later, in October 1187, Saladin captured Jerusalem itself, treating its inhabitants far more humanely than the Crusaders had nearly a century before. The fall of Jerusalem prompted the Third Crusade, perhaps the most famous of them all. It was called the Crusade of Kings because it was led by 3 of Europe's most formidable monarchs: Emperor Frederick Barbarossa of the Holy Roman Empire, King Philip II of France, and King Richard I of England, known as Richard the Lionheart. The crusade began with a tragedy. Frederick Barbarossa drowned while crossing a river in Anatolia in 1190. Philip and Richard, intense rivals, managed to cooperate long enough to recapture the key port city of Acre in 1191. However, Philip soon returned to France, leaving Richard in sole command. For the next year, Richard the Lionheart and Saladin engaged in a legendary series of battles and negotiations. Richard won several key victories, most notably at the Battle of Arras, but he ultimately recognized that he lacked the manpower to successfully besiege and hold Jerusalem. In September 1192, he and Saladin signed the Treaty of Jaffa. The treaty left Jerusalem under Muslim control, but allowed unarmed Christian pilgrims safe passage to visit the city as holy sites. The Crusaders would retain a narrow strip of coastal territory. While not a total victory, Richard had salvaged the Crusader presence in the Levant, setting the stage for the conflicts to come. The Fourth Crusade is where things get really strange and controversial. Called by Pope Innocent III around 1198 with the goal of attacking Egypt, the heart of Saladin's former empire, the crusade ran into financial trouble from the start. The Crusaders contracted with the Venetians to provide a fleet, but not enough knights showed up to pay the bill. To pay off their debt, the Crusaders agreed to help the Venetians capture the Christian city of Zara. Then, they got entangled in a Byzantine succession dispute, diverting their entire force to Constantinople, the capital of the Byzantine Empire, and the greatest Christian city in the world. In 1204, the Crusaders sacked Constantinople, a shocking event that created a permanent rift between the Catholic West and Orthodox East, and fatally weakened the Byzantine Empire. The Fourth Crusade never even reached the Holy Land. Over the next few decades, several other crusades were launched, with varying and often bizarre results. The Fifth Crusade from 1217 to 1221 saw another attempt to conquer Egypt, which ultimately failed at the gates of Cairo. Then came the Sixth Crusade, led by the excommunicated Holy Roman Emperor Frederick II. In a stunning turn of events, Frederick, through diplomacy alone, negotiated a treaty in 1229 that returned Jerusalem, Bethlehem, and Nazareth to Christian control for 10 years. It was a crusade won without a major battle. However, this diplomatic success was short-lived, and Jerusalem was retaken by Khwarezmian mercenaries in 1244. The final major efforts were led by King Louis IX of France, later known as Saint Louis. His first attempt, the Seventh Crusade, once again targeted Egypt from 1248 to 1254. It started well with the capture of Damietta, but ended in disaster when Louis was captured and had to be undeterred. He launched the Eighth Crusade in 1270, this time aimed at Tunis in North Africa. The plan was to create a base for future operations, but disease swept through the Crusader camp, and Louis IX himself died, bringing the crusade to an abrupt end. With his death, the spirit of large-scale crusading in Europe largely faded. The remaining Crusader strongholds fell one by one, culminating in the fall of Acre, the last major Crusader city. In 1291, this event is generally considered the end of the Crusades in the Holy Land. And there you have Ida, whirlwind tours of 200 years of the Crusades. From the fervent call to arms in 1095 to the final fall of Acre in 1291. This era was a complex tapestry of faith, politics, and conflict that left an indelible mark on the world we live in today. It changed the map, altered the course of empires, and created cultural and religious divisions that have echoed through the centuries. Thank you so much for joining me on this historical journey. If you found this timeline fascinating, please give this video a thumbs up, and let me know in the comments which part of the Crusades you'd like to see a more detailed video on. And don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss our next deep dive into history. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.